Good day and welcome to SCO BRICS Insight, where we look at what's really going on in the world of the BRICS. At the UN International Climate Summit last December, it was recognised that energy transition will not be achievable without the inclusion of nuclear power. A joint declaration on the tripling of nuclear energy production was adopted by representatives of the 22 leading countries. This demonstrates the shift away from renewable sources to low-carbon energy, and that includes nuclear energy. Now, for the past 28 years, the world leaders and environmental activists have convened annually at the Conference of the Parties of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, COP, with almost an exclusive focus on the variable renewable energy sources, such as solar and wind, as a solution to what they call global warming or climate change. Since the inaugural COP in 1995, the proportion of fossil fuels in the global energy mix has remained largely static at around 80%. Meanwhile, the only energy source, along with hydropower, that's demonstrated the ability to decarbonise electricity supply on a major scale has largely been excluded from discussions at this global climate gathering. Well, that is until now. Nuclear power became a prominent topic in the global headlines at COP28 in Dubai, and the leaders from the 22 countries on the four continents convened to announce a declaration to advance the aspirational goal of tripling nuclear energy capacity by 2050. Now, this initiative aims to meet climate goals and energy needs. The declaration invited the World Bank, regional development banks, international financial institutions to include nuclear lending in their packages. Now, all while emphasising the necessity to secure supply chains to facilitate the accelerated deployment of this technology. So that's where I'm going to go after this now in the video. After 28 years in the wilderness, nuclear is finally having its moment in the sun at the world's most important gathering, and not a moment too soon, said Xeon Lights, who's a former UK spokesman for the environmental movement Extinction Rebellion. Yeah, those loonies that block roads, etc. As someone who previously opposed nuclear energy but since changed my position, it's encouraging to observe the shift in attitudes towards nuclear energy. Well, about time too. Now, before I continue, I'd like to make an appeal. If you like and enjoy my videos, you can help me fund my channel and my website, SCO BRICS Insight, and further develop it. You can do this by making a small donation, which is done by clicking on the thanks button at the bottom of the video screen. Everybody who donates does get a personal thank you from me. Now, this turnaround in policies means a whole lot of things to a whole lot of people, but in this video, I'm going to focus on Russia and its relationship with the West and the BRICS in the area of nuclear fuel supply, without which their nuclear dreams is never going to happen. As without a reliable supply of raw uranium or enriched uranium, nothing's going to change. Currently the EU and the US are seeking to divest themselves of Russian uranium. So thus far, these intentions have been only expressed verbally. The Europeans are increasing their purchases, while the Americans have introduced a somewhat porous ban on imports. Meanwhile, the demand for radioactive materials is growing pretty rapidly, and prices have risen significantly. Now, Russia's Rosatom is one of the world's major exporters, and it keeps increasing its market share. The global market's experienced a surge in demand, and that's leading to intense competition between suppliers and looking to gain influence for those who control the supply chains. In the last year, the demand for uranium's reached its highest level since 2011. And that's due to the fact that both Asia and Europe are pursuing extensive nuclear programs in order to meet their energy needs and reduce their carbon emissions. The primary driver of raw materials markets remains the goal of producing green energy or renewable energy, whatever you want to call it. Ultimately, the most cost-effective clean kilowatt is produced by nuclear power plants. Russia, in collaboration with China and India, is driving the growth of this nuclear industry. Now, according to Tatiana Skirl, who's a professor of economic theory at the Russian University of Economics, there's currently over 60 nuclear power plants currently under construction worldwide, with the plans in place for at least the next decade. Now, the conflict in Ukraine has brought Europe's heavy dependence on Russian oil and gas into sharp focus, which has provided a timely boost to the nuclear industry, and it's now dramatically increasing its demand for nuclear fuel. Consequently, the West once again becomes reliant on Moscow for some of its energy resources. I mean, in 2023, European customers, primarily the British and the Dutch, purchased 253 tons of Russian enriched uranium for 450 million euros. Now, this represents about 20% of their total import volume, but still a substantial amount. Plus, the price goes up. In 2021, the price per kilogram was 678 euros. It was 1163 in 2022 and 1713 in 2023. Now, the EU is obviously not happy with this situation, so they're looking for alternative suppliers. Kazakhstan, Russia's neighbour, is emerging as a key potential partner. But it's not just them. In May, the Biden administration prohibited the import of Russia's uranium, which accounts for 1/3 of America's imports. However, they did significantly increase their purchases in advance. In 2023, they purchased 702 tonnes, which was up from 588 in 2022, and that was for $1.2 billion. Furthermore, the legislation they brought in permits the continued acquisition of the raw material if that import substitution is unsuccessful. I mean, they get 1/3 of what they need from Russia, and their hybrid replacement plan in place to 2028 is if there's no suitable alternatives. Of course, there's not going to be any suitable alternatives. I mean, the US also plans to increase the capacity of its Urenco plants in New Mexico and in Germany by 15%, but it's not clear whether that's going to be sufficient. Now, in the case of high-grade, low-enriched uranium, Rosatom is still the sole supplier to the US, representing 99% of its market. That's according to Maria Gilrich, who's an expert at the Russian OECD IP Centre. Now, Washington's also exerting pressure on Brussels, but Brussels is not yet going to impose sanctions against the Russian nuclear sector. Although Paris and Budapest hold opposing views on this matter. I mean, the Hungarian government has stated that it's not going ahead with it simply because the 4th, 5th and 6th units of the Pax nuclear power plant use a Russian VVER 1200 technology. According to various sources, this station accounts for 50% of Hungary's energy production. In 2014, the construction was actually 80% financed by Russian banks for 10 billion euros, with a repayment schedule over 30 years to 2046. Plus, they started another one called Pax 2. And the French-German consortium of Framatome Siemens is participating in the project as a subcontractor under the Russian Rosatom. Gilrich also reveals that another French company, ADF, is supplying the turbines for the power units. Now, Russia's only 6th in the global rankings of actual raw uranium production, with a market share of just over 5%. Approximately 45% of the world's uranium production is in Kazakhstan, and that's 3 times more than the output of Canada, who are the 2nd largest supplier. I mean, according to Rosatom, Astana accounts for 25% of America's imports and almost 2/3 of China's imports. However, China is the market leader in the export of enriched uranium, with sales of 2.7 billion in 2023. I mean, enrichment market forecasts indicate by 2035, Moscow will be responsible for 30% of the global enrichment supplies worldwide. Also, a notable proportion of the production capacity in Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, who have about 17% of global production, is owned by Russian companies. That allows Russia to influence prices through minor restrictions on sales and looking for the most profitable contracts, for example with China, Brazil or India, and not with the EU or the US, says Michael Kachurian, who's a professor of strategic and innovative development at the Russian Financial University. Additionally, Beijing is seeking to establish a presence in Kazakhstan. I mean, the Chinese state-owned National Uranium Corporation has entered into agreements with local operators to establish several joint mining ventures. Additionally, There's a discussion underway regarding the development of the Shanghai-Astana Railway for the purpose of transporting not just uranium, but a whole wide range of goods into Kazakhstan and then on into Russia and Europe. China is also increasing its purchases from Russia. I mean, it bought over 400 million of enriched uranium in 2023. I mean, in May, Beijing purchased over 300 million worth of Russian enriched uranium, so it's beginning to pick up. In the coming years, demand is certainly going to grow, leading to intense competition among the major consumers. Now, the focus is on the US, France and China. I mean, Paris, which has lost its access to uranium deposits in Niger, will also lose Namibia in the favourable future, which will intensify competition and raise prices. I mean, in general, while the West is seeking to reduce its reliance on Russia, it's increasing its influence over the key manufacturers and producers and control over supplies. Plus, there's new markets emerging. In addition to China, these are India, the Middle East and North Africa. I mean, Rosatom's constructing nuclear power plants in Turkey, India, Bangladesh, China, Hungary and Egypt, with a total of 34 new reactors currently under development. These, in fact, are new markets for Russian uranium. According to various sources, approximately 30 countries currently, with approximately 440 nuclear power plants, import uranium from Russia. So as the West rejects Russian oil and gas, it still finds it needs Russia for many of its energy needs. Now, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. If you've enjoyed this video, you can help me fund the channel and the website SCOBRICSinsight.com by clicking on the thanks button at the bottom of the screen. Also, please use the comments section, because I do like to read and I do like to respond to as many of your comments as I possibly can. Thank you. I hope you've enjoyed this video.